Good morning, everyone. This morning I'm here with Jennie Gorman, and Jenny's kindly agreed to come and talk to me about some of the activities she does and all the things she's involved with, and especially about a new direction she's had for a little while now, and I'm really keen to talk to her about it. So with that, welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Geoff, very much for having me here.
We've known each other for a while, and we've first connected through social media, and I first came to know you as the people connector. And I've come to realise that that's very much true, that you have the ability to help people make connections, and you've been able to use that to move into all kinds of things. So, but first up, tell me about your background. Like, where did you hail from and where do you live?
I live in Brisbane now. I came from a country town initially in southern New South Wales in the Riverina, and my parents had property. So consequently, I've been a networker all my life. It's what country people do naturally, because it's the survival of people in the country when you've got to you'd go a distance to do anything. And so people are very dependent on other people to get them, to support them for what they need in life. So I learned very young how to actually develop relationships with people. I went off to boarding school when I was 8 years old. As hard as that was at the time, I now realise it was the greatest gift I was ever given. And the reason for that is that I learnt responsibility. I learnt independence. I learnt how to be solely who I am, what I am, how to read people. It's sort of hard to explain because all my work really is based on those early learnings. And it's the learnings of being personally responsible for your life. It's the learnings of being independent and not blaming anyone else for anything that happens in your life. So my work really started when I was a very little girl, and it sort of carried on, I suppose, all my life. But it wasn't until the late 80s that I recognised that I had a gift or had a skill in connecting people, in listening to what people were saying and knowing where to put people, how to match people. So I started writing. This is back probably around about, firstly had a personal development natural therapy centre. And during that time, I realised that I had the ability to really connect people. And because I was working with practitioners, I found that a lot of the practitioners I was working with, they couldn't make it in the marketplace. And the reason they weren't making it in the marketplace was because they didn't know how to market themselves. What they did as a modality, they were very, very good, but they failed. And the more I saw that, the more I realised that what they needed were the skills that I had, and consequently I became a promoter. I spent a lot of years bringing people in from overseas, as well as working with people who are Australians nationally. I was fortunate enough to work for an events company for a few years and work with the greats in business as well as in personal development. And anyone who knows me knows that I am a great Jim Rohn fan. I worked with Jim over 4 years. And I learned an enormous amount from him about business, about people. And I suppose that was really the starting of me realising that there was no difference in people from who they were personally to who they are in business. Up until a few years ago, people had two separate personas. And the separate personas were, this is who I am at home and this is who I am in my business. And for me, it wasn't congruent because I believe we need to be the same person, show the world we're the same person.
So how do you define, I suppose, personas, and why do you say that up until a few years ago we had different lives?
Networking, when I started networking, there was no such word as networking from a perspective of relationship building. Networking was computer peripherals, and it was all to do with computers this is the late 80s, early 90s. So people there's just no such thing as networking. In those days, it was the old boys network.
Yes, that's right.
The one thing I discovered about the old boys network was that people referred their friends. They didn't have to be very good at what they did. They didn't have to be very honourable or be anything else. They were their mates. But the marketplace has changed now because I believe that business now is built on trust. People buy people. They don't buy your service or your product. And the only way people are going to know whether they're going to want your product is through trust. So business has changed in as much that you have to get to know someone. You have to trust them. You've got to be prepared to put them against your name. Because if I refer somebody and that falls over, I'm going to be the one who's going to have the problem, not the person who I referred. So it's become very, very personal. Once people didn't care, I'd give you to my best mate who was a lawyer or who was
a plumber.
It didn't matter what it was.
Right.
He could do a lousy job and nobody sort of said anything. Whereas now it's very, very different. So networking became a name probably in about the mid-'80s that people started to use it from a relationship building perspective. It was out on the outer a bit, whereas now it's the only word they use. They don't use it really talking about computers anymore.
No, I spent 25 years in the industry, so I sort of understand the background and word of mouth and referrals. But certainly I see that networking, business networking is so critically important these days, and people like yourself really, you're known as the people connector, really make that huge difference in people's lives and in their business lives.
Well, I think the big thing is with networking is, and I see it when I go to networking events, that people don't really understand what they're meant to be doing. So for me, they're wasting their time, money and energy going to an inn because it's really having a coffee or a drink. Networking is a skill set that you learn. Anybody can learn it. It's quite easy, but it is a skill set. Now, if you're an extrovert like me, that's much easier. If you're an introvert, it is that much harder, but there are lots of techniques that can be used that can make it very easy for somebody. But I discovered that over probably about 6-7 years ago, I discovered that networking was only very phony. It is phony in a way. Yes, networking is great, and 95% of my business comes as a result of relationship building. But we needed to go deeper, and if you're going to refer people and work with people, you have to get to know the person, because that's who you're buying or that's who you're selling.
Jennie, with your networking knowledge, I know that you provide an excellent report in networking. What's that report called?
There's a free e-course that I have on my website called the 21 Days to Becoming a Better Networker. I run workshops teaching that, because to learn the skills that go with what I call relationship building, it's something that takes time. You know, there's a lot of steps to it, because most people don't understand that when they go networking, they need to set a goal as to why they're going networking. There's a process that you need to do.
And I see now that you've moved on to a new direction, and you've got a business called Business Mastermind Groups, of which you've now got the trademark for.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for doing that for me, Geoff. I do appreciate you've looked after everything that needed to be looked after. So thank you.
Thank you. And I see this kind of as a more sophisticated way of connecting people, and certainly to a higher level of trust, because you're in a, how would I put it, like an enclosed group, I suppose.
Yep.
So can you tell me about what led you to start the Business Mastermind Groups, and how people have found that, or how it's benefited business people?
Masterminding is the next level in business, and I've developed over the last 6 years a formula for masterminding, because I found that networking wasn't really getting people to where I believe they need to be going in their relationships. So masterminding for me, it's built on the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich philosophy, and it's all about getting a group of people together. I have a maximum of 6 participants in a group, and there's a co-facilitator and myself. And it's about getting people to firstly understand what is their why. Why do they do what they do? Why are they here on this earth plane? What's their why? What's their purpose for life? Because I believe if you have a business that is doing your purpose, whatever that happens to be, you'll be very successful at it, because you will have the passion and the ability to go through the rough times of business if it's what you really love doing.
So that's all about that why part of it.
That's the why.
Okay.
And then I another thing I like people to understand is, what's their legacy? Why do you do what you do? What do you want from it in the end? I believe everyone needs to have a vision, and their vision is the big picture of their business. Then we have a look at, well, what's the mission? And the mission is how they're going to get to the vision that they have. And this can be different for different people and depending on the personality style. So I work very much with wealth dynamics because I believe from a small business perspective, it's very important that people understand who they are, but they also need to understand who other people are. And by understanding that, it gives them the ability to be able to understand their clients, because you are going to have a client of all personality profiles.
I've found that when I think about the point you've raised about the why, people in my age group begin to think about legacy as well. I mean, what have you achieved in your life? Is there a change of direction required? And what legacy are you going to leave behind you? How do you want people to think of you, and what have you left? What have you given back to the world or to charities or churches, whatever it is? I tend to think that's also a motivation factor and part of the why as well.
Yes, it is, but it's even going deeper than that. I quite often say to someone, if someone is standing over your grave, if you happen to have a grave, what do you want them to say about you? Have you left a mark that you've touched people enough to help them change their lives? And have there been people, because if you do it for people, they do it for you. It's a two-way street. But it's all about paying it forward. And for me, that's probably the most important thing when you're in business, is because a lot of people are locked into businesses about money. Yes, we have to have money to pay our bills. And because I'm a baby boomer generation, I feel a responsibility for the damage baby boomers actually did in business, because we made the almighty dollar the only important thing in life. And we lost what it was about who we are and what we needed to do for ourselves and for other people and what we had to give back.
So do you see this next generation as different from the baby boomer? I'm a baby boomer as well, so do you see it different in some way?
Very different. The Y generation understand the baby boomer, and of course they've we'll start with the X firstly. The X understands, my children are X's, so they understand us, so they understand the values that a boomer has. You get to the Y generation, who are the younger generation today, the under 30s. They're very different in as much that they don't understand the mindset of a baby boomer. And if you're going to be in business today, you have to understand all the generations, because we handle them very differently. We communicate very differently. I actually benchmark as an X and a Y, so I understand the way an X and a Y thinks. I have very few people in my circle who are a boomer. Most of my clients and my friends are aged between 45 to 50. And the reason being is because I think like they think. I do business like they think. The way I have always done business and with the relationship building, people from my generation just didn't get it. They were still caught up in the old boys network philosophy. So for me, because I've probably always been very forward in my thinking, in as much that I come to things a lot earlier than other people, and most people think I'm a bit crazy. But for me, I think, we need to start looking at more as, what are we here for? What do we want to leave the world? And
that comes back to that why, doesn't it?
Everything comes back to the why.
Yeah.
It's why do you do your business? If you understand why you're doing it, you can sell your story. The one thing for people when they're employing people, if they can't get their vision across, that's their story. If they can't get that why across, the people aren't going to stay with them. People aren't going to last. They're not going to have the vested interest in a business. And I think this is why we get an enormous turnover, because the people running businesses a lot of the time can't sell their story. And
in some ways that why needs to come from the top, doesn't it?
Has to, of course.
And that drives the culture, and then our staff or our people we employ pick up the culture and become part of the journey with us. But without the why from the top, without that deep belief in why we're doing things, I think businesses struggle.
They do, and I think people are starting to probably look at it a lot more because people are starting to do personal development now. They're starting to gain awareness of who they are and what they want. I think the younger generation, I love working with younger generations. I know people who are my age, they don't see it the same way. But I believe the Y generation is what's going to pull the planet out of where we are. And I hear a lot of people saying, would never employ them, I wouldn't work with them. They're the most fascinating group of people.
Oh, I love them. I reckon they're fantastic. I love working with them as well.
Yeah, their ideas, and they're fast. And I think probably the reason a lot of baby boomers and traditionalists have a problem because they think so fast. But we live in a time now where we have the internet, and I always say to people when I'm talking or working with them, when I started business, there wasn't even a fax machine. But to be able to communicate the way we communicate now is such a gift. It's so fast. And getting people to understand social media. And for me, social media is really important. I have 21 social media sites. I love it. As a relationship builder, I suppose that's fairly normal. But it gives me the ability to get to people and connect with people I would never get an opportunity to.
We first connected through social media, and I was really quite impressed how you engaged me and we began a conversation on social media. But more than that, it then led me to understand and believe in your authenticity. And it took time for me to feel comfortable that, she's a really genuine person, and you're the people connector, and people say nice things about you, and I saw the posts. And then we connected, and we've done some business together. But I've always been impressed with that level of use of social media, which I enjoy doing, but certainly the next generation, it's just second nature, isn't it, to them, the Y generation?
Yes, it is. And it gives anyone an opportunity to start the relationship. And it's getting people to understand relationship building is on and offline. You meet people online, and then you get to physically connect with them if they're close enough. And if they're not, we've got Skype or Viber or whatever. We can communicate with the world. We're so blessed now with that ability to be able to talk to anyone. If you've got a message, you can get it to anywhere, anytime. I had somebody yesterday who started writing on social media to me through Facebook, probably about 4 days ago. And she said, I really want to meet you. Okay, that's all right. And so I found a time. I had an hour and a half's opportunity yesterday to meet this woman. I couldn't even pronounce her name, let alone anything else. Anyway, she ended up coming half an hour early, and we ended up with 2 hours together, and it was absolutely incredible. And that was because of social media. I would have never got to meet her in life. And this happens all the time. And you can go anywhere and people know who you are. As long as you set your social media up the right way, of course. I believe everybody needs to learn how to use social media, and there are some brilliant people out there who teach how to work, because each platform is different. You have a different way of working social media dependent on the platform. But there are so many good people who can teach really well people what to do. There's no excuse not to know how to use it.
I think the next generation of business people, or the next level of thinking for business people, is to accept that there are multiple forms of communication, including social media. And I find that, and you would find the same as well, that when people want to contact you or people want to contact me, they might do it through an SMS, an email, Facebook, LinkedIn, or any number of ways now that I have to be available. And I get some great inquiries, but it depends on the person and how they feel, or how they have that link is to how they want to connect. And I receive inquiries all the time through all kinds of different ways. All those levels of communication are there for people to make contact with me and with you. And you just have to be open to anything that comes in these days, because people adopt different levels or different parts of social media as to where they are at the time. Do you find that as well?
Yes, I do. And this is why people's business cards are so important, and having an accurate business card. To get me on business cards, I can talk for 2 hours on it because it's a hobby horse of mine.
I remember you criticised my business card because on my business card, I have a QR code. Matter of fact, I have two. I have one on the back and one on the front. And the first thing you said to me when I gave you my new card was something along the lines of, why haven't you got your picture on there? And I thought about that and I thought, okay, yes. And you were right. I mean, I should have a picture on there. You have a certain philosophy about that, don't you, about people's business cards?
I do, because your business card is your shop window. If people see your card somewhere and your face is on it, and it's important to have the same face that you have right across social media so they recognise you. And people say to me, you're everywhere. Well, yes, but I use the same photo. I'm about to do a big change on that, and that will come with the new book. So there's going to be a new change on that. But that means it's got to be changed everywhere. It's got to be changed on all my social media sites, which are, as I said, 21 of them. There's a whole lot of websites I have, so they've all got to be changed. So it's not something you can just change in minutes. It's days or weeks of work. But it's really important that you have a photo that looks like you, that you're recognisable, that people will look at you and say, I know who you are. And social media gives us that ability, as does the business card, for people to be able to do that. But it's the business card that when we're moving around that we hand out. And the amount of incorrect information on business cards blows me away. And the size of the writing, because I have to use a magnifying glass for a lot of business cards. And if I have to do that and I still can't read it, they go in the bin.
Yes, you'll be pleased to know that, number one, I'm going to have my picture on my next print of business cards, okay? And number two, I have a pet peeve about really small font as well at my age. I don't want to get a business card out or I have to get a magnifying glass to read the phone number or address. It frustrates me no end.
Well, and most people don't understand that, and with graphic designers, they want a card to look pretty. A card has got to be serviceable. It's got to be able to get the information across. And you've got to have the information on front and back. And on the front is where your picture will be. And that's where all your relevant information will be, from all your mobile numbers, your email address, your web address, a physical address, your physical being a post office box. It's where you're going to give that sort of information. Whereas on the other side is where you're going to put what it is you do. There's no sense in picking up a card and it's got someone's name on it. They've got a business name that is not related at all to their business, and you have no idea who they are. But if they can turn it over, later people are going to say, oh, that's right, they do this, this, this and this, and it gives you the in. To me, it's common sense.
Now, you talk about this in your networking workshops, don't you? And also in your mastermind groups. You cover this type of thing in the mastermind groups?
Yes, I do. In masterminding is into a deeper depth. Masterminding to me is all about a small group of people building the level of trust so that no matter what is going on in their life, they have people around them who they trust well enough to be able to communicate about anything they need to communicate about. If a mastermind group, and mine run for 6 months, but I find if people stay in masterminding for 12 months, and if they're with the same people, those people are with them for life. They have developed a very, very strong core group of people who will support them. And the advantage of having different people from different personality styles, from different business types, is that their peripheral vision for all of them is so very different. So people get the opportunity to be able to hear an idea or suggestions that they would never come up themselves with. And masterminding will help people to work through the processes and the difficulties and the challenges they have within their business, and they will get ideas coming from different mindsets. And masterminding is all about mindsets, getting different mindsets together. I mentor also, but and coaching is only one-on-one, and it's one person's perspective. Masterminding, and I would love to see masterminding groups everywhere. I believe that there are different challenges depending on where you're at in your business, whether you've come out of corporate, whether you're new in business, whether you've ever had a business before. They're all different categories and different types of mastermind groups. But I would love to see thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of masterminding groups around the country. I'd love to see them globally, because I see what happens to people's businesses when they get other people that they trust together who actually can support them. And this is why the groups have got to be closed, very, very confidential, and people can talk about their IP, can talk about things that they don't talk about to other people.
So it's mastermind, or the mastermind groups are closed groups.
Very closed.
They tend to build a high level of trust and connectivity. They talk about things that probably, like you mentioned, wouldn't talk about elsewhere. Are there certain types of people or businesses which aren't suited for masterminding, or is it, in your mind, does it sort of fit across the board?
It's right across the board. It wouldn't matter whether people were all from the one mindset or all from the one business category, or whether they're totally separate. The secret to masterminding, from my perspective, is having 8 people in a room, 6 to 8 people who come from a different profile. So if they have come from a totally different, this is why I use wealth dynamics, from a totally different profile, people are going to get feedback from a space they never would. You're going to be sitting in a room initially with someone you don't necessarily click with in certain areas. I do have the ability to be able to put people, to match people. So because someone wants to be in a mastermind group, it doesn't mean they're going to be in a mastermind group. I may never even find a group that's going to be suitable to them, because the match and the people are what is so important that are in that room together.
So in a room, you wouldn't want, say, 8 printers talking to each other, because they're only going to talk about printing. And it wouldn't...
Well, yeah, that can still work if they're different profiles.
Okay.
Because you're going to market differently. You're going to think differently if you're a different profile. So the aim is that the best person in the room is the person who is your opposite from a profile perspective. Now, I have a co-facilitator who is my total opposite. He is gold, absolute gold in a group, because we play off each other. Because where I don't have good skills, or I'm not an expert, he is. And so that means everyone in the group is getting so much more, and they're getting it from each other because they're different profiles. When you get a group that they're all the same profile, which tends to happen in a lot of groups because the person who's arranging it wants people they like there.
Yes, which is not the right way, is it?
Well, you're not going to get the mindsets. You're not going to get you're not going to get right across the board ideas of how things can be different. You know, you need someone who's very balanced against someone who's really airy-fairy, because that's going to be your creative. But then you need someone who's got this really strong balance there as well. And then you've got to have people who are introverts. You've got to have people who are extroverts. It's really the mixes of personality style is the most important thing.
What type of outcomes have you seen from your mastermind group so far, or from any mastermind groups?
I can only talk about my mastermind groups. I have actually just joined a mastermind group that is with a group of ex-masterminders of mine. So we meet fortnightly, which is wonderful. I'm getting the chance to be in a mastermind instead of facilitating, because the one thing, let me mention there, is that I don't believe a facilitator can really successfully be in a mastermind group.
No, they're leading the group.
Because they're going to be concentrating on what's happening for them and what outcomes they want. So the facilitator has to be very different, with no expectation of anything for themselves within a group, because it won't work. I don't believe it will work successfully if they do.
And that leads into the thinking of we can't these days, I don't believe, we can't operate as an island. So no matter what level you are, you'll need peers, you'll need people.
That's right.
Or have your own mastermind group at whatever level you are, to keep you on track, be accountable, and be able to move forward. So that's interesting that you've now have your mastermind group you're engaged with as well.
Well, it's important for me.
Of course.
I have a lot of mentors. I'm very fortunate to have some brilliant mentors in my life as well. So I have to grow. The only way I'm going to get better at what I do. So every group I start, we go to another level with it, because I will learn things along the way. I learn it from my masterminders. I learn it from just experiencing life. You
recently came back from a conference, didn't you?
I did. I had a wonderful conference, and I have wonderful mentors through there. You have to keep learning. There's no stopping. You have to keep working to achieve higher and to be accountable. And I think that is probably the most important thing in a mastermind group, is the accountability part. Because if you're not accountable, nothing is going to happen. So I teach goal setting. I do a lot of talking about goal setting, about creating future, whatever it is, because to me this is really, really important. because we have to keep striving higher. People die if they don't have something to strive for. As has been proved over the years, a man in the past would hit retirement age, he'd retire, and he would die within 5 years. The reason being is because he had never thought of anything or prepared himself for a life after what he had. We're a little bit smarter today, but I'm a great believer that if you can have your business around what you love doing, which for a lot of people is their hobby, and then is the passion, but then they can build a business from that. But you did ask a minute ago about successes. This last year, I've had people triple. I had one particular guy who came into masterminding, and I thought, this is going to be interesting to see how this goes, because I'm not sure how we're going to make this one really work. He tripled his bottom line in 5 months.
In 5 months? That's impressive.
Because he headed off overseas, so we only got 5 months with him. And he tripled his bottom line in that time, and now he's global with his work. It's just astounding. It was astounding. He's a wonderful man, wonderful friend. It's the friendships you gain as a result. You know, even within a year, I'm working with anything up to 40 different people, mentoring as well as last year's, the year before, the year before, the year before.
Oh, so okay. It's a growing family.
It is a growing family. But as well as that, I have people who double their bottom line in the time. I've got lots of videos that are on my website that will tell people talks about people talking about their experiences. When I run introductions to masterminding, I have past masterminders there, because I can talk about it, but because it's what I love and what I do, it's up to you whether you believe me or not. But if they're people who have been through the process and understand it and love the process and can see what it has done for them and can express that to others, they're going to be able to talk from a different space. So this is why being able to do videos is so important, to have people get testimonials from people, to give them their credibility.
The video testimonials.
It's all about social proof.
Yes.
And today, I think marketplace has changed. A resume means nothing. The person's writing it themselves or getting someone to write it for them. Written testimonials don't mean a lot these days either, unless somebody knows the person and all their details are there so somebody can make contact. Anybody who gives me a testimonial, their website's on it, their contact details are there so people can double check. And I think this is what's really important, because social proof, because of the internet, has changed the way we see people, and this is why people buy people. They don't buy what you do. They don't buy your service or your product. They buy the person, and there's plenty for everyone out there. So I don't believe in competition. When I hear people saying to me, but there's so many other people. Well, if I put a group of people in a room and then put, say, 5 florists or 5 plumbers or 5 whatever in a room, I will look at the people concerned and work out, well, you need to go there and you need to go there and you need to go there, because people connect with different people. And it's understanding you've got to match the people right. If you don't match the right florist or the right plumber or the right doctor, the right person, it's not going to work.
That's right. Yes, I see that. When I was in IT for a long, long time, it was really hard to get any kind of industry group going, because in those days, IT companies, small IT companies, they wouldn't talk to each other in the same networking room. You know, they're all suspicious that if they mention a client,
it still happens today, Geoff.
Yes, and I think I was trying to get them working together as a group for the better of the industry, but it was just so hard back then. But I think things have changed quite a lot, and with people with their personal development and with their own education, people are learning that yes, it's in their mind or in my mind, what I see is competition, but really it's not that way at all.
Well, I think if 9 out of 10 people that I come across for the first time, and I'm very big on this when I'm in my trainings and those sorts of things, is that most 9 out of 10 people believe there's competition. I believe there's collaboration, there's sharing, there's you create a relationship, you then go to strategic alliances, then you then go to joint venturing. They're all different levels that you're going to go within a business relationship with somebody. But I think the big thing is that people don't understand that the greatest person they can have around them is someone who does what they do, because we do it differently. And if they're a different mindset, if they're a different personality style, there's going to be a certain number of people you can't work with. I refer a lot of people to other people. It may be in my industry, but they're not someone that I'm the best person to work for or to work with. The challenge I see with a lot of people in business, they're terrified to let a client go. Well, not everyone's going to be attracted to me. I'm not going to like everyone, and not everyone's going to like me. That's a fact of life.
That's right. I maintain good relationships with other people who are management consultants or business advisors. I mean, my focus is on trademarks and intellectual property. But I certainly maintain those relationships because I don't see them as competition, and they've come to appreciate that they don't see me as competition. And I've actually received some wonderful referrals from these other advisors because I'm either too busy or I have a level of expertise that they don't have in what I do, or it could be about trademarks. And it's been very financially rewarding and also personally rewarding, keeping at those relationships and to catch up and talk about the industry generally. Yeah. We're not a mastermind group, but certainly we love to talk about what's happening in the industry and what you're doing and what I'm doing, and share ideas and share referrals and leads and things like that. I find that rewarding. I don't see them as competition, but also it's been rewarding both ways from everything I've experienced so far.
Yeah. Well, we're only an expert, if you want to use that, a drip under pressure, on what we know. And if you're with someone who does the same thing as you do, they're going to have a totally different take on it, on the same subject, because they're going to do it differently, especially if they're a different personality style. It's important you can learn from them and they can learn from you. And then you've got someone you can refer clients to who need to know what it is they do that you don't do or that you can't teach them.
For a busy person or someone who is time poor, what level of participation or time commitment should someone expect if they want to become involved in a mastermind group?
My groups run fortnightly over a 6-month period. There's 12 sessions in a group and a package. We meet every fortnight for 2.5 hours. And I think the most important thing is people understand those 2.5 hours, they're working on their business. In it. You're working on your business as a group.
During those sessions, okay.
I don't believe there's any challenge a business person has that everybody else doesn't have. So you're learning the whole time by when people are talking about what's happening and where their challenges are, where they need support, there are other people who need it. It's like there's no such thing as a silly question because there's always somebody who's too afraid to ask that question. So it's the same sort of thing. For a business person, no matter what level of business you're at, there are going to be certain challenges that go with it. There are people who have experienced those challenges and can support as a result of the experiences they've had. Or they have their challenge themselves and they need help with it. So they have their 2.5 hours. I also have a system that they must meet within that fortnight with at least one of the other people within the group.
As in
it's an accountability, a one-on-one.
Okay.
And that's really, really important. People can Skype if they want. I don't believe you can get from a telephone or a Skype call what you can get from a one-on-one. Because people need to learn, and I always stress there's a period of time when they meet, especially if it's women, because their meetings, if it was going to be an hour's meeting, will go to 2 or 3. A man will only ever go for the length of time that the time is set. So people have to understand that also. But if you're going to be meeting, you must spend a certain amount of time talking about your business.
Yes.
At least 10 minutes each, because it's all about the relationship building. It's about getting to know the other person, to understand the other person, to listen to their ideas, listen to their challenges, help them. So it's teaching people to listen as well.
I find that even with networking groups and when you get to meet someone, having that one-on-one helps build a much deeper level of trust and to get that understanding with that person. And therefore, to me, those things are really important because that then leads, for me, to referrals and things like that.
Well, that's what you can't get that, because if you're going to be very aware of your reputation will be affected by the people you refer. If you refer someone who's not good, you're going to pay the price.
Yes. So
this is why it's really important. If people are going to support each other, they've got to know each other. They've got to develop that level of relationship. And I'd never take couples in personal relationships or they're in business relationships together, because I always find that there will be one who will be subservient and one who is not able to really voice their opinion. I learned that quite early on in masterminding. It's quite a strict, it's a very structured process I have, and I find you have to have that because your time is so limited. But I also now, for my past, present and some future masterminders, I run 2 events a month as well that they're free to come to, with experts talking about their particular industries. It's time to get you into one. One of them talking about IP.
Excellent.
Covering all different areas of business where they can be supported. I find that's really important. So for me, when people come into my masterminding, it's different because they're my family. They become my family. I suppose for me, they become my advocates and I become theirs, because I get to know people very, very deeply, because I suppose for me that's what I do. But I find other people within masterminding will do that also, especially if they go do a second term of masterminding. I believe masterminding should be a year long, but not everybody can afford or wants to pay that because they don't understand the concept. And what I have in mind, because they're closed, you can't come and try it out. So I run free introductory evenings for people to come and hear and learn, and I go through the process with them and they hear other people, and I'll usually have anything up to 5 people who will actually are ex-masterminders of different profiles who will talk about their experiences.
With all the things you've got going on, you must be a very busy woman. You're doing quite a number of things. You're quite entrepreneurial. The mastermind groups, I don't know where you find the time, actually.
Well, masterminding is my passion. Networking, relationship building was my passion for so many years, until I recognised that the relationships with networking couldn't go deep enough to really become what they needed to become. By getting into masterminding, and this is why I developed the masterminding, was I started to read a lot of information about it and different books, and started to realise people needed to be able to come together where they could really honestly talk about their challenges. And I say to people, if you're broke, you're broke, and that's okay. Talk about it. People will help you. I've had people in mastermind groups who have had people who were broke, who have created and printed their business cards for them, have built and created websites for them, who have cut them. It's remarkable what people, they build this relationship with people who look after them, who will give them the contacts they need to do whatever from their own cost.
That's an amazing level of support.
Well, that's what it's about. To me, that's what it's about. That's why I can't talk about anyone else's, because I only know the process I put together. The group that I'm in now are my ex-masterminders. So I'm just part of the group now, which is rather nice. But there's only one person in that group that's not been a mastermind, because they're people who understand my process.
If people wanted to find out more about the mastermind groups or to contact you, how would they do that?
Well, I'm known out there mainly for the Connections Unlimited website I have, but I have a masterminding one, which is www, of course, businessmastermindgroups.com.au. If you just write masterminding in Brisbane, Google it, I'll come up anyway. Or if you just put Jennie Gorman in, it will come up with all the different things I do. That's Jennie, Jennie, Gorman, Gorman. Anyone can email me at jennie@jenniegorman.com or .com.au, it doesn't matter which, and I will get that also. I have so many different websites because that's dependent on, it's all the different things that I do out there in the marketplace. I'm really doing the same thing, just in different ways. And my book, Awesome Authenticity, which is going to be launching the second book, the end of February of this year. Yes, I'm ready to put that out, take that globally now.
So if you want to make contact with Jennie, just do a search on any of the social media platforms. You'll turn up somewhere.
Yes, I'll turn up.
If you're looking to join or become part of Jennie's family in the masterminding groups.
Or networking or anything. Yeah. Even if I'm quite happy to support people in any way I can to help them achieve what they want to achieve. I think my biggest thing is I do a lot of work, if I can go in a moment.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with the NICE scheme, which is I speak twice a month to people who are in that scheme. It's a government scheme, and they're people who are new in business who have, the bulk of them, no business knowledge whatsoever. And the government put them through this incentive program. And for me, I desperately want to get grants so I can do masterminding for free and have them running everywhere for these people, because there's not the level of support I believe a new business person needs. And I think the one thing that for me, I hate to see people fail, and I believe they're being set up to fail because people can't do it on their own. Small business is lonely.
No one's an island in business anymore, that's for sure.
And I suppose that's my biggest passion, and I love speaking to these people because teaching them what they need to know out there, be it from a social media perspective, be it from a network relationship building perspective, teaching them how to goal set, teaching them to have a vision, teaching them to have things that I believe can support them. It's volunteer, I do it. I would talk to them every week if I could, because I feel so passionate about these people who want to do something and create their own business, but the marketplace doesn't help them because they've got no money. And that, to me, unless you've got money, people won't help you. Well, people haven't got money, I'm happy to help them, because for me, I realise my dreams every day, and I think to not realise your dream must be the most terrible thing, and to fail at what your dream is.
I'm listening to you and thinking about what other people have talked to me about as well, and it's a bit about helping people. And often when you help people in volunteer time or give resources away, it can often lead to growing them into being a paying customer, or growing them into be a long-term client as well. So you can't expect money from everybody for everything you do. And I'm a great believer in also giving back and talking and participating in community things and chamber groups, things like that. I mean, it's all really important.
And they all come to my groups, and anyone who's in with NICE, I say, you can come to anything I do free. Can't come into a group free. I will work something out with them if I need to. But they can come to anyone, because I believe business people who have businesses going have got to support people who are trying to go there too. We've all been there. We all know what it's like to do tough times. We need to help other people who are having tough times.
I agree, absolutely.
And it's all about paying it forward.
Yes.
And
which is where we started the conversation.
It's all about paying it forward.
That's right.
And I think one thing I'd like to say when people are building relationships and networking, it's about what you can give someone else, not what you can get. If you go to a networking event in your mind expecting a return, you're not going to get it.
And don't forget to inquire about Jennie's free course on networking by signing up to her email list.
Got to go, yes. If you want that, you've got to go to the Connections Unlimited, CONNEXIONS unlimited.com.au site to actually get that. I think if you go to the JennieGorman.com, it'll probably link you into that anyway, but you've got to just tick the little box, put in your name and your email address, and for 21 days you will actually every day get a little snippet of something that will support you to actually become a better networker.
I'll make sure those links are on the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
When I put this up on the website as well, so people can go directly to those different websites as well.
Thank you.
Jenny, I just want to thank you today for driving up and sitting with me and talking about yourself, a bit more about your background and about your ability to connect people, which is I'm so impressed with, and also about the business mastermind groups and how people can really benefit from being part of a business mastermind group and building those relationships with people to help them build their own business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Geoff. It's been an honour to talk with you today. Thank you.